So hey guys, welcome to another video. As promised in an earlier video, or I think two videos now, because of the pandemic in 2020, what I did is for my best of the year list, I only made it a top 5 best of the year. Normally I do top 10 just because of all the releases and all the choices I have, and clearly by the end of the year I clearly probably have at least 10 films I can put on that top 10 list. But due to the lack of releases this year, due to almost no movie releases happening at all this past year, due to no worst of the year or even a number 11 list for this year either. I am just doing a top 5 list. I am going to bring up two runner up films that clearly didn't make the list, but this is just a top 5. So obviously, with 5 being, really great, not as good as the number 1 title, and with number 1 being, best of the year, my number 1 pick for the year, and things like that. That's usually how my top 10 list usually works. So I will work at 5 and then work my way up to number 1. And like I said, I do have two runners up that I enjoyed, but they didn't quite make the list this year. And if there was a top 10 list, like I probably would have done for every other year, I'm sure these two films would have made it. And obviously, there would have been other films to compare it to make sure that these were the best of the year and things like that. So, without further ado, I'm going to talk about the two films that didn't make the list. I still really enjoyed them in 2020, but there was ultimately 5 other films that made the top 5 list that I chose instead. So that first film that was runner up was Scoob. I thought this was a really fun movie, kind of the first real summer movie we had this year due to the pandemic. I thought it was really fun. They could have solved a traditional mystery like any other Scooby Doo story would, but I did like the kind of the energy of the film and the new directions that they tried to do and things like that. I also liked how they incorporated more Hanna-Barbera characters into it, like Captain Caveman and the Blue Falcon and Dynomutt and things like that. Really fun movie. I don't know if I would rewatch it, but it's really, really fun. I really enjoyed watching it. It was great to have an actual summer movie this year. I was worried we weren't going to have any at that point in time, and thankfully Scoob came out and kind of became that first summer movie. Really fun film. Didn't make the best of the year list, unfortunately, but still really good, and I highly recommend that you see it. Another film I saw in 2020 that I happen to think was really good, though not quite as good as that original animated film, and that was Mulan. That was the live action remake for this year. Really good film, great production design, great color contrasting, um, great fighting choreography, great cast. Tons of great things to love about the Mulan remake. It just didn't quite live up to that animated film for Mulan. I did miss the Mushu character. I missed the energy of that animated film. I even kind of missed the musical numbers too. There's just a lot of things that it missed that was kind of a missed opportunity overall, but I liked the film overall, but once again, doesn't quite make my top 5 best of the year. So that's Mulan. So now to the actual best of the year. At number 5, we have Bill and Ted Face the Music. This is a film I just got around to recently. Really a lot of fun. Very fun movie. Definitely feels like an 80s and 90s film, just like when those first two Bill and Ted films came out. Definitely kind of answers a couple questions for what Bill and Ted were doing over the years. Definitely puts them in that that scenario they're always placed in, where they got to save the universe or save the band or things like that. They have adult daughters this time. It was just really a lot of fun. They got thrown into different kind of scenarios throughout the movie that really make it really fun to watch for 91 minutes. Great film that I highly recommend, and a great follow up to that first Bill and Ted film. At number 4, we have Sonic the Hedgehog. This is a film I was looking forward to all year, and it lived up to the hype. It was another movie that broke the video game curse. It was a lot of fun. It brought the Sonic the Hedgehog character to life in ways that I was hoping they would bring him to life in a movie. Jim Carrey played a great Dr. Robotnik in it. Um, it really goes to show, the story has to come first, adaptation has to come later. They kind of achieved both. They brought all the right adaptation elements to the story while still telling a good story. It was funny, it was fun. I was introduced to great characters, even characters that aren't even in the Sonic games that were helpful for that story. It's just a great film that finally broke the video game curse, similar to what Detective Pikachu did. And I'm very thankful that we got a Sonic movie that's great and not awful. And I think redesigning Sonic really benefited the film and really kind of got people more interested in it due to the better design of Sonic and things like that. So it made it in at my number 4 spot on my list. At number 3, we have a film that you can still watch on ESPN Plus. I got to see the premiere of it on ESPN television on the cable network for ESPN, and that's the film Be Water. This is a documentary about Bruce Lee and his life and all the challenges he had to face while being alive, and how little stupid things he had to run into just because of his race. Like he only got a third of a paycheck that what the actor of the Green Hornet played, and yet he played Kato, a more physically demanding character, and only gets maybe even a third of a paycheck than what the actor who played Green Hornet got, and things like that. There was just a lot of terrible things he had to deal with over the course of his life that I didn't know he had to deal with until just recently. Even though Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, does kind of acknowledge some terrible things he ran into when he was being alive. Um, it's just a great nod to Bruce Lee. It's great to kind of catch up with people who are still alive that personally knew Bruce and had great stories about him and knew how hard he worked on the film sets and things like that. A great little documentary that you can still watch on ESPN Plus, and I highly recommend doing so. Be Water is a great documentary about Bruce Lee, and it makes it at number 3 on my list. At number 2 on my list, we have Soul, the latest Pixar film that is an absolute great movie. It has a great message about enjoying the big stuff in life while also making sure you enjoy the small stuff. It really was a great movie from Pixar. It really is one of their more original films since Inside Out, and I loved Inside Out. I don't know if I liked Soul as much as Inside Out, but it's a great movie that really has a lot to say about being alive and what life in the afterlife might be like, what life before we enter life might be like. And Tina Fey gave a great voice performance, so did Jamie Foxx. It's also a love letter to jazz music, which I really liked about it. There's just tons of things to love about Soul. You can watch it right now on Disney Plus. I really hope it gets some type of Blu-ray or DVD release in the future because I would buy it immediately and rewatch it several more times. I absolutely love Soul. It makes it at number 2 on my list. Then for my favorite film of 2020, we have Tenet. Tenet is a great, great movie. It's by one of my favorite directors, Christopher Nolan. What makes Christopher Nolan such a great director is he uses practical effects whenever he can and only uses CGI effects when absolutely needed. And here he gave us a really great gift of a film in Tenet. He gave us a great time manipulation story that really is kind of different from everything else. How time gets reversed and how time moves forward is very unique in this movie. John David Washington gave a great performance in this movie. So did Robert Pattinson. It really was a great little espionage thriller movie that really uses time manipulation in a way that hasn't been used in a film before, and it gives us an original story as a result. And there's just so many things I love about Tenet. It absolutely is my number 1 favorite film of 2020. And I know there hasn't been a lot of releases this year, but Tenet really was a great movie, and I'm sure it would have a very strong ranking on any other year it would have been released. But due to the fact that it came out in kind of a bad year for movies, and that it was as great as it was, is just more proof that it absolutely deserves that number 1 spot. And Christopher Nolan was able to bring it into theaters, which was a really hard thing to do back in early September, but he was able to do it with Tenet, and he gave us a really great film as a result. Can't say it's Christopher Nolan's best film. That probably would still go to The Dark Knight for me, with Inception being kind of number 2 right there on that list. But still a great film from Christopher Nolan that I absolutely loved. An absolute number 1 favorite film of the year list for 2020. So that was my top 5 best of the year, you guys. What were some of your favorites in 2020? I know there's not a lot of choices for this year just due to the lack of releases for this year, but these were my top favorite films of the year. Let me know down below what some of your favorites were, and hopefully 2021 will bring us more movies, and hopefully the pandemic will start to slow down just enough that we can actually get films in the theater again and have plenty more great films to talk about in 2021.